And I'm like, where's the hot water heater here? And I'm looking at these people, and I gave away all my clothes and shoes because Spirit Airlines, they call it Spirit because you can only have your spirit with you, or they charge you for everything else.
What's up, everybody? This is Mikey Schmitz. We have another episode of Hydrated Mind and Soul. Today, we're going to be talking about voices of victory, where overcomers become leaders.
And our special guest that falls right into that category is one of our local community advocates and runs the nonprofit Team Success Enterprises, and that is Michael C. Marsh. And we're so excited to have him because he truly is a testimony.
Welcome, brother.
Thank you. It's kind of deep. That's a lot to follow. Something about leaders, but yes, thank you so much for having me. I always like to say I've turned my mess into my message, and my test to my testimony. So, great title of the show there.
Yes, and to go along with that, see, because you're very good at the acronyms, you always have these sayings. I need you to help with the show topic names because they always do so well. But the reason I said that is we had talked one time about your gala name, which goes right along with you and your nonprofit, and you put that Trials
to Triumph. We're celebrating 7 years, and this year's title theme is Trials to Triumph.
And that goes right along with our show and you and what you've kind of overcame and now become so huge in the community. And when I say huge in the community, truly helping other people on a daily basis out in the trenches, not the just take some money and we did this and help this lady. Like, you're really out there with a lot of different things. And so it's very impactful. But also on top of that, coming from where you've come from as a single father, which is what the one thing I wanted to also bring up is that happy belated Father's Day.
Thank you.
Because that was a few days back.
Thank you. It's my favorite holiday.
A mother and a father because you're a single father
Identify
of two
as
girls.
both.
Yes, exactly, right? And should, because it's just
transparental.
Right, there you go. See, but truly, because a lot.
Can I say that on this show?
Yeah,
okay,
you can.
I don't want to offend anyone.
You can say whatever you want. It's
okay.
It's you.
All right.
Well,
filter,
you know what? I take that back.
Yeah.
Careful with that one.
Yeah, that was a little. That was loaded. That was loaded. But with the single father, I think a lot of people tend to focus on single mom, single mother, single mom. Yeah. But you're out here being the single dad, from two girls as the dad. You've got girls, which I feel is a little harder because they get into where they're at now,
Much
that
harder.
Teenage years. And you're stuck at, what do I do with these girls that are growing into young ladies now?
I tell you some funny story. Yes, and I love being a girl dad. But the stories, and we laugh about it now, but I can remember just one, too awkward when you have daughters. One, the time of the month, and it's time for a bra. Both very conversations that I said, I'm going to be married. This ain't going to be my adventure. However, not. Both were my adventures.
Yes.
And I don't know which one was a Saturday. But as far as funny, I can remember my oldest daughter, we're in JCPenney. I said, honey, you just pick out like 7 of them. One of them a fit. And she's looking at me like, there's got to be a better way. And it's funny because I didn't even know it was bra time, but I get a phone call. And, my daughter's always had angels along the way. And I get a phone call from the after-school program. Hey, Mr. Marsh. And I'm like, oh, what did Trinity do now? Well, no, she didn't do anything, but she's starting to get those things. And I'm like, what things is she getting? Well, we could see on her shirt, do you want us to go help you go bra shopping? I said, oh, those things. I'm like, well, okay. And, my mom, God bless her, I was like, Mom, you help me out here. I don't really know what to do. But then there was times where I would spin them around to make a ponytail. I mean, there's great stories.
Yeah.
Then the one time my daughter thought she was dying because it was the time of the month. And I was like, I thought I really had one more year to do this.
Find the wife
still. Poor
still.
baby. I'm like, but yes, I just celebrated 10 years of being a single dad. And I think you hit it on the head a lot of times. Society empathizes with the mom, right? But you never think about the single dad because as men, we're tough, we're strong, we don't break, we'll figure it out. But it was hell. I could remember, being in court from the beginning thinking to myself, someone's going to dictate to me when I could see my kids. This
Yeah.
ain't going to work out.
Yeah.
And I thank God, because even though it's rough doing it by myself, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
Because I could never think about, and I work in the family law sector, of someone telling me, all right, you're going to get these kids Thursday at 5, you're going to come back on Monday, and then we're going to rotate the holidays. And I'm so every day, even though it was so rough and being broke as their teens now, I wouldn't have it any other way.
And I can relate as the single mom for many years before my husband came along. Thank God he did come along.
Shouts out
I'm
to the
sorry
great
that
husband.
you did it.
We love you, Brandon. Sorry.
Yes, we do. But really, truly, relate to those moments when you're not as the, dad with the girls, because I feel like that'd be harder, not knowing what to do
It's
as
much
this man,
harder.
So that's why I give credit, because I feel like that would be harder than the single mom with a boy or a girl, because I think girls are more difficult. And so
They're much more difficult.
and so you got stuck with two.
Yes.
But they're amazing young ladies.
Thank you very
they're
much.
very, very beautiful, amazing young ladies. That is credit to you.
Thank you.
And God, of course,
Thank you.
that has guided you. But now on from the single father onto kind of your past, because people a lot of times judge us by our past, which they shouldn't. And I'm a true believer, I think I've said before, in change, and that it's all about you.
Sure.
Every person it's up to you what you do from today forward.
Absolutely.
If we're here, because we're not promised tomorrow, but today, what do I do today? That's my saying to my kids, to everybody. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry, nothing in the past. Don't ever bring up the past unless we're sharing it as for a good reason.
Sure.
Because all we can do is with what we have today.
Absolutely.
Amen.
And so from that, as far as a past for you, you have this successful nonprofit. You've become very big into our community with all kinds of things, with the homeless, with the school district, with the sheriff's department, running programs, doing things for good. But you have the background of you were in jail.
Yeah.
And so most people don't take that and run with it in that direction. It usually tends to be a different situation. So if you want to kind of explain
and I think with the type of work that we do, whether it's the homeless, whether it's that child that's experiencing some type of trauma, or that inmate that maybe it's the fifth chance that they need, lived experience, and I really think that's pivotal, because it's one thing to tell somebody, for example, when I mentor a young person, hey, don't get in trouble, and it's a whole nother thing to explain. Let me show you the hell I went through.
Yes.
That I'm 33 years old, and FAU is telling me, yo, you want to go into grad school, but you did all this 20 years ago. And, in the state of Florida, the punishment never ends, right?
Exactly.
It's not, all right, you did this, you did your time, and now what's next? And it can be very depressing. I mean, I went through probably like a 10-year bout fighting depression as to, I'm never going past this in life. And I realized I wasn't getting through the front door, so I broke in through the back, literally and figuratively. I got burglary on my background. However, but I turned no into meaning next opportunity.
100%.
And I always realized that I'm going to have to be this much greater than the next person. And so what did I do? I went out and graduated not once, not twice, not 3, but 5 times. Yep. And because I said, something, I may not live out the dream of being an attorney, but I'll live out the dream to be an activist and advocate for people. And I wanted to get those in society that they're looked at as hopeless. And I want to let them know they're not helpless.
Exactly.
And so I'm still living out my dream. I get to go into, and it's crazy because even my parents don't understand. You like going to jail? I'm like, yes, there's no bond needed this time. I just walk right through the gate.
That's when it's the good time.
I'm the good guy now.
Yes, but it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
And as crazy as it sounds, I look forward to going inside that jail.
Yeah.
Because I wish that someone would have, when you're incarcerated, and not to go back into the whole time, but I was in lockdown for a substantial amount of time. And when you're with yourself for 24 hours a day, I watch guys lose their mind. It's either going to make or break you. And it broke me at first.
Yep, it's one or the other.
But then I was able to see myself graduating. And, they always say, oh, well, God's only in prison. But when you have nothing more but to read and to pray and find yourself, I was able to fantasize that in 2009, I can get my first degree if I get out in this year. I wrote letters home to my mom telling her that if I got out on this plea deal, then I could graduate here. I didn't know how that was going to look.
You had those goals set for yourself, though.
Yeah.
You're like, here, if I do this and I can graduate here and here. So you had all that time to think
Yeah.
and really self-internalize and really think about the things internally, which is what happens a lot of times in jails and prisons. A lot of people turn to God or some type of faith, which is, and then they get out and veer from it or
Sure.
stick with it, whatever the case may be. Neither's right or wrong, but that's kind of that time exactly as far as statistically people do
Yeah.
make a turning
Yeah.
point in that circumstance, or they fall back and are worse.
Gotta be sick and tired of
So,
being sick and
yes.
tired.
So, and that was a question for me, for you, which was, when was your like make it or break it turning point? Like, what did that for you that said, you know what, this is not what I want to do? Like, what was your turning point?
I think the
Period.
realization at one point in my life, I was facing life in prison. I had not one, not two, I had 4 counties with open cases that I said to myself, well, God, there must be something you have for me, because the one case that I wasn't really guilty, I was kind of half guilty. That one got me, but the other ones where I'm like, I'm dead guilty. I broke into this, I stole it. Like, I should have went to prison. Every case got dropped. And when you can't explain things in life, you realize that it ain't you and it's God. And I think once seeing that, I started building up my faith. I was more petrified when I had a misdemeanor charge than the felony case that was going to send the felony cases that was going to send me away for life. Because my faith, I think, once I finally built my faith,
Strength.
It builds the strength. 2018, one of my mentors now came to my job and said, "Why are you so mad?" And I'm thinking to myself, wow, you could see that. And invited me to Bible study. I thought he was nuts. I said, I'm going to go to Bible study? I'm all good with that. You know what I mean? But I did it. And a comment he made to me was, so you want to start this charity? I said, oh, yeah. He said, well, you're going to have a ministry either in prison or on the street. And I'm thinking to myself, no, prison's not really an option, bro. Like, I'm doing good now. But I still had a pending case at the time. And I had 32 years hanging over my head back then. Wife, we were getting divorced, like everything was really bad, but I felt unbreakable and unmovable. And I think when you finally have that type of faith and you say, I'm good with whatever happens next, that was the peace and that was the joy. And that was the day that I realized, I said, you know something, I think he's nuts. I hope I don't have this ministry in prison, but if that's where God needs me and that's where I belong, and one by one, everything started changing around.
It's like a lion
And
falling in
it all fell in place. The wife still left. Maybe she needed to. But the charity begun, and I started going out into the woods, and I started feeding the homeless. And everything that I said, you know something? I hurt this person, and I may never see that person again. But if I could help all these people, it was my crazy mindset of, not being even, right? Because you're never really even.
Yeah.
But I said, I want to do this stuff. And a lot of people didn't even realize it. They would think I'm nuts. Like, you're collecting stuff, you're going to go off into the woods. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Because I've been homeless, and I could talk to these people, and I have a big mouth. And finally, it paid off for the good.
And we can relate to, I always say, all of us have a test or testimony. All of us have been through the valleys and may go through more. We don't know. Only God knows that. But I feel like we can relate to where we've been. And I always say that I am not going to help somebody as well as I could if I'm helping someone that's been through the same things as me, just like you and anyone else. I feel like the reason we go through those trials those tests are to turn into a testimony. Because those testimonies help other people and they relate to you. They don't think it's just somebody reading off spiels telling them how to get help. They realize, oh, wait a minute, you were on the street. Oh, wait, you were raped too, or wait, you were all these things that then they're like, then they listen, then they tune in because they're like, okay, they've been through it and they see where you're at now and think, oh, I can do this. One of my, and I don't even know what this is, but Jelly Roll for, I know he's a big thing right now. Some people love him, some people hate him.
He goes
but
into the
to
prisons.
me, he is doing exactly that. And I don't care what people say about him. Every time he gets on that stage, he says, if I can be here, never in my wildest dreams would I thought I could be here. And I give every single credit to that, to God. And if I can do it, all of you out there, don't think you can't do something. If you really set your mind to it, you pray, you seek God.
A little bit of faith.
Just a little, just a tiny bit. Just start there, for anybody. And what you were talking about is during those struggles, it shifts. Once you find that relationship with Jesus, those struggles for me and everyone that I talk to, it is that true scripture that you have that peace that surpasses all understanding, because you don't
It's crazy.
understand what's going on. You don't understand why this is happening. You don't understand how you could feel better in this horrible situation, but it's there.
And you
Because
find
now
your
you have
why.
it. It's
Oh, yeah.
exactly. It's
You're
so
like, God, I don't
amazing.
know how I'm getting through
Oh,
this,
yeah.
but I know you got it.
Yeah.
You're with
I don't
me.
know how we're doing
There
it.
was times I would get chills.
Yeah.
I could remember being in jail. Marsh packed it up. I'm like, where am I going now? Are you going to face your charges in Palm Beach? I'm like, well, what about the ones here? Oh, they were dropped. I'm like, okay, all right, new scenery. Let's get on the
On
bus,
to the
guys.
next.
Off to Palm Beach and
Yeah.
off to Dade, and then we're going to Broward, and then we'll go to Hillsborough. But one by one, they were all dropped.
And just trusting.
And Just
Trusting
and
the
they
process.
never should have been. I'm just like, never. But then
And there
I
was no
realized-
explanation.
No explanation.
And look at where you're at now. That's
Yeah.
your explanation somewhat of what God was doing, because he was doing that to use you to do all. And you went into the legal field.
Yes,
You became
ironically.
a paralegal.
Yeah.
You went and got your master's in legal studies. Maybe it was in a thought of like, how can I help myself, guys? But no. But you went on to do these work, at law offices and things like that. And it's so you've come from that to it, and that really truly shows people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people be, oh, you have a record, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Or
And
do you mean?
I tell you about work, and when you talk about the legal stuff, it's humbling because, and not to listen, paralegals do most of the work, right? The attorneys are just the ones that got the good way of talking and pass the bar. Paralegals do a lot of work, but that wasn't my dream. I'm like, I'm not here to push papers, but it was very humbling because at first I'm thinking to myself, I want to at least be in that arena, and it was so cool to have that chance in life, and I appreciate it. But one of the best jobs I ever had was to be a case manager. And I knew nothing about the rehab world. The one thing in life that I never really got big into was drugs. We tried it, and another court case came out of that one. But I really didn't understand what these guys were going through.
Right.
But I did understand how they were perceived by society. That whether you're a convicted felon or someone who's had addiction problems, society looks at you the same. They look at you like you don't deserve the help. You're a disgusting human being.
Very judgmental.
And I would go to work and I would be all dressed up in a suit and tie, and these guys would clown me. I would run group and say, all right, today we're going to talk about this topic, and that today no means next opportunity, and they would laugh at me. And then one day, finally, I got sick of how they would speak to me, and I started talking with the jail slang and say, well, were you ever in the box? Were you ever in the chair? How about 4-point restraint? And they're listening to me, and I'm like,
wait, who's this guy?
yeah, and I'm like, I know all your records. I have more convictions and arrests than all yous combined. And now I got their attention. And I never, at first, I'm like, I don't want to go there. I'd rather, I thought my groups were interesting. I thought I was interesting. But I realized that they had to
That's
hear.
the only way they're going to listen to you. They can relate. If you relate,
and you had
listen.
to be relatable. And once they realized, like, wait, so you did time? I said, absolutely. And now I have an MBA. And they're thinking to themselves, like, wow. So sometimes in life, you may not get it right your fourth time. For me, it was like my seventh.
It doesn't matter,
It
though,
finally
because
clicked.
the only way to fail is to give up. Every
Correct.
time you fall,
100%.
Yeah.
what do you do? Every time you fall, or any time that you get to the point where all I can do is stand, just stand.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
and I know that's a thing, a saying.
Those are the
slogan
most unique people,
that,
though, that they
yes.
can get knocked down. And those are the ones. There's not too many. I don't look up celebrities or any of that nonsense.
No.
But that person, like, wow, that's a true definition of a hustler. Someone who can get knocked down 4 times, but he get back up the 5th time.
Just getting back up or just staying standing, because I know people perceive things very wrong, and they are very judgmental, which we should not be, because we never know what somebody's going through. And the other thing, when I say stand, we could be going through so much and nobody around us even knows, because we're just standing.
Yeah.
We're just
So
continuing
you
to
just got to
stand.
show up and get
and,
up.
And when people hear what you're going through or what you're doing, they're like, wait, what, you? What do you? Oh, you look great. Well, and I hear that a lot, and have in the past with worse things that have happened in my younger past than now. And thank you, Jesus, that I am where I am. Because I say all the time, if we had social media and all those things back then, I'd be dead or in jail. So obviously he has a reason and purpose for me to still be here, but that's besides the point. But standing looks, like you said with the suit, oh, you look so good. How are you? And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to look like? Like, I mean, you want me, if I looked the way I felt, I'd be out here in raggedy clothes and everything, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to sit and complain and talk to you about all my problems. That does no good. That's a part of the
here to help.
mindset. That's just, what is that? Does it make it better? No.
Yeah.
So let's focus on something positive and at least feel better for that moment or day or minute, whatever the case may be. But I'd say to you, team success? What does success look like to you?
You know, for me, it's crazy where we are at in 7 years. I knew nothing about how to run a charity. I remember year one, our good friend Rosie said to me,
Yes.
"Hey, did you fill out your solicitation of contributions?" "Oh, the hell is that, Rosie?" She's like, "Well, when you take stuff in, you got to report it to the state." I'm like, "I ain't do that." And I called up the state, and I'm like, "Wow, I'm going to go to jail again." And the guy was so nice to me, and I was honest. I said, "Listen, we've been taking money. He said, "Oh, no, your first year, it's okay because you don't have to claim to the next year." I was like, "Oh." But then I thought it was the dumbest thing ever. I was like, "So you give me expired bagels. I have to attribute a value to the expired bagel."
Exactly.
I'm like, this is so dumb. But going back, I not to say that financially where we're at, that makes us successful.
No, right.
But the fact that we can help this many more people, I do attribute that as success. To turn $700 into tens of thousands
Right.
and not have any grant dollars. We just, for the first time, and waiting for approval, got funding from the county. We just got when you talk about the partnerships, school district just gave us over $1,400 on Monday night. I'm standing there with the school board members and the superintendent, having an amazing relationship with the sheriff where we've given the jail farm. There's a legit farm at the jail, over $30,000. That is how I measure success.
Yes.
That when so many people believe in me and believe in us, that is the success. Not the dollar amount that's attached to it, but the fact that someone would say, "You know what? Yeah, I want to write you a $1,000 check." And not one vehicle, not two. We have a fleet now at Team Success. I got a baby semi-truck, a 30-foot vehicle, over 100 moves in 1 year. That's how I measure success.
That's awesome.
And I tell you, it is a little bit selfish. So, for example, the other day, and I don't think I'm an interior designer, but apparently I kind of am. This mom, I'm sending pictures to her. She didn't even move in yet. She was going to come the next day, and she was still stuck in a hotel. We furnished everything. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, wait a second, guys. Did we put a blanket on every bed for the kids? Did we put some dishes? Check the truck for this. And that is my kind of selfish way of I feel so good. I've had a dad one time, Habitat for Humanity gave him a home. And I get a phone call, "Hey, can you help furnish it? He's got a home, but the kids are going to be on the floor." And the dad just wanted shower curtains.
Yeah.
Things that we take for granted all the time.
For granted a lot, and we know that. We see that. We ask, you do your Christmas event and your Thanksgiving, and we have where we ask them a need and a want.
Yeah.
Because obviously we want to meet their needs.
Sure.
And with us and you, we've partnered with you a lot of times because we believe in you and what you do because we've seen it. But even the ones that are wants, we look at these slips and take for granted the things we have because these kids or elderly write their wants down, and it's like socks,
want clothes,
and you're
it's
like, no, that's a need,
I want to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's 12. I want socks.
Right, exactly. Same, and today's it's this technology like a $1,000 iPad or something that are what these kids say there is their need that are used to getting whatever they want. But those ones who have struggled, we know very well that when you struggle in your younger age, you tend to not take that much, that stuff for granted. But we look at their wants, and I'm like, I want to cry when I'm reading the little slips of what they wrote, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a need, and I want to be like, honey, you need socks. Like, what do you wish you had? That, just to make that one day a little bit specialer for them. And you're out there on the holidays. You're out there on Thanksgiving Day, on Christmas Day.
And that's what makes us different.
That's different.
Yeah.
Not everybody
and that's how
does
I
that.
want it because, Thanksgiving, we're getting ready to make them collard greens and everything else. We got people in the woods who maybe if they had a McDouble, they would be happy. And so when we first started this, I said, how do we make this different? If it's a holiday, we're out in the trenches. And the only thing that has changed since then has been I got to be a little bit more intentional, as we're trying to go for other grant dollars. But I never want to deviate from, but how did you start? You started in the woods. You started off with making sure and going back to the experiences. And just two quick stories. One, when you're a kid, you never know how poor you really are, right?
Right.
You just think, oh, it's
think
normal.
It's normal. Yeah.
Till I got older and I was like,
then you start visiting. Yeah. So we were so poor, the water boxes. Ironically, we're talking about water, so you should know that. But the gallon of water is those heavy boxes, right?
Yeah.
That was my furniture. That was my TV stand. That was my dresser. That was my nightstand. And I thought that was normal. I didn't know. I'm like, our baby pictures were on the little water box.
Yeah.
And so one day we're moving, and my mom couldn't afford movers, and we lost everything. And my baseball trophy, I'm like, the one damn thing I get in life, and I wanted that, and we lost it all.
Yeah.
That stuck with me 30 years later. So I said, you know what I want to do? I want to be an indigent moving company. I want to make sure no one loses their stuff again. And I want to move these people, and I'm going to treat their stuff
With dignity.
Exactly. Everything gets blanket. And, and sometimes guys will look at me, we're going to blanket that? And I'm like, you know what? That's the only thing this person has. I treat them the same way if I'm moving someone from John's Island, right? But I thought about that day and how hurt I was. I wish my mother, and we didn't lose the Sega and the damn baseball trophy, And so I took that with me into this. And now we're the only indigent moving company here in Indian River County. Yep. And we service St. Lucie, we serve Martin, But those water boxes, I remember those days. And I remember, and now I could look around my house, and maybe like an episode of Hoarders, depending on who you talk to. But there's an abundance of stuff.
Don't ask me.
Yeah, you can't come over. But I don't have the water boxes anymore.
Yeah.
But it sticks with you. It makes you the character. It's in your fabric of who you are and why you do what you do.
Exactly.
100%.
Those all of us as experiences make who we become each day, and what we become is up to us as far as what choice we make.
You don't
Even
have
with
to be.
faith in God, God's there, but we have our free will. So at the end of the day, we have to choose: are we going to listen to that or go the opposite direction? And then we have our rewards and consequences of either way that we do. And nobody's perfect day to day. I don't. If you say you are, then you're lying. But that's what's most important, the dignity part, because that's what I see a lot is people want to donate to us and other charities, their clothes and things, and they bring things and they're holes or they have stains. I'm like, no, I do. No, I'm not taking that. Like, absolutely not.
I get so offended.
Food.
Yeah. And I've gotten everything. It's funny because just recently I threw away, we had extra stuff from the hurricane. And I go through stuff because that's just how I am. Because I'm like, if I wouldn't give it to my kids, and it was like toothpaste from 2014. I'm like, who the hell would still have this in their medicine cabinet? But I make a post once a year that says Team Success will take your furniture and your donations, and Waste Management will take your trash.
Yes, and it's true.
Just so we could differentiate. But there's times where, I'm like, what do you think? Oh, hell, they have nothing. Give it to them.
They do. And
and
think
some
that.
people legit. I'm like, if it smells like smoke, I don't want it. If it smells like a dog, I don't want it. If it's got holes, if it's broken. And I tell you what, I blacklist you. The first time you give me something, I'm like, I won't pick up a second time. But no, I'm not saying they need to have Jordans on their feet, but damn it, they should have some Nikes without holes in them.
No, but if you
or
won't
shoes with
wear
at least
it,
a sole.
exactly.
Oh yeah.
And you would be surprised. I think everyone would be surprised of how much of those things that us nonprofit people get, and that people think is acceptable. But if you're just cleaning old canned goods out, then throw them away. Just because they don't have as much as you doesn't mean they're not worth as much as you. Everybody's self-worth is the same. We're all worthy. Okay, whether you're on the street, whether you're in a mansion, whatever, our worth, especially if we're all brothers and sisters in Christ, we are extremely worthy. And now our job is to bring others in.
Correct.
But that brings me to
Give
my
your gift
statistic,
away.
because I haven't given you my statistic yet. So I have to do that. Okay, you guys know. But
it's a whole doctor.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It is. So
There's
it's
a
the doctor,
statistic every time, but I love it.
Did I have a statistic last time?
Yeah, we were talking about the
Producer shook his
amount
head.
of microplastics.
Okay, did we?
We had like 3 or 4.
Producer says yes, had a statistic. So John keeps track, so we're good. So, but my statistic for you, and I actually, when I went to the Journal of Traumatic Stress and on my psychology websites and things, and
was it
was
peer
higher.
reviewed?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And it was higher than I thought, because it's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one, because I was like, wow, this is higher than I would have guessed, what a guess is or an assumption. But 60% of people, that's a high amount. And I always like to highlight a high when I bring the statistics, because people tend to think the more negative route. But 60 is more than half. So I think of it as that's a big number. But 60% of people who have overcame a personal adversity in some way, they are more likely to serve. their community
Sure.
or other people. And that
Because
makes
they appreciate
sense.
everything so much more.
Well, exactly what we
Yeah.
said. We can relate to it. So now we want to help others that were in our circumstance in the
Absolutely.
past.
Exactly.
And I didn't think of it as a statistic, and that makes sense, and I say that all the time, but statistically I didn't think it was going to be that large of a number, because I like to think everybody does.
Yeah.
But and that in that 60%, all of them make a positive change in some way in their, around them, in their community at some point. And that's great.
Yeah.
And that just brings us back to the point that those are the things we're meant to go through, because then we turn around and make a positive
Correct.
change.
Yeah.
And so that's when I say God has a purpose and plan for us. Sometimes we do not understand what it is. Lean not to your understanding. We have no idea what's going on, but there is one.
Yeah.
Sometimes we never figure out why.
Yeah.
That we've been through something.
Or
through
you'll
something.
go crazy trying to.
You can't.
You go down a
years.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sat there and was like, but why did this happen? And, with depression, you stay stuck in that moment. And I think that's really what depression is that the pause never gets unpaused. And for me, it was, but why did I have to go through this? And how could I have? And, nothing you're going to do is going to go back and, just change it, or this doesn't happen. And 10 years went by. And then finally I said, you know something? I know I'm still not where I need to be, but let me just enroll in one class. And it's almost like I tricked my brain as to I'm not really depressed anymore. And even though I'm still pretty damn depressed, I was like, but let me get something to get my mind off it.
But just one little thing can change
Yeah, can
everything
spark, yeah.
in any type of mental illness or mental health issue that you have. Teeny little steps, because like you said, it's staying in that spot. And when you
staying
stay
stagnant.
You just got to move.
Oh, yeah.
you
That's
gotta
it.
go.
Sometimes you just got to show up. And when you
got
talked
to.
about standing up, there was times where I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I remember I dropped out of grad school, 2 classes away from graduation. And it was so funny because in grad school, they put me through all this stuff, and they said, all right, so you can't even get a ticket like while you're in grad school. Dummy here that goes and does a protest gets arrested, and had to go into the dean of the College of Business. And I'm sitting, I'm like, this is where I get kicked out.
Yes.
And she's like, you're so close. Why? Do you know I graduated with a monitor, a house arrest monitor blinking on my damn leg, and I still graduated.
Still did it.
And there was always angels amongst that was helping me out. I think we have to hurry up here. But more of the story
you're good.
was,
No.
oh, okay, because I'm seeing him looking at me. But the house arrest guy, the officer, says to me, all right, you have your real graduation. I'm sure you don't want this thing strapped to your leg. You're like a week and a half out. I'm going to take it off of you. You get in trouble, you took it off of you. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy believes so much in me that he doesn't want me to have this inconvenience. And, oh, my God, it was horrible. It was the funniest thing ever. When it didn't stay charged, they call you up and like, you're going to jail. Well, where are you at? And I'm like, oh, I forgot to charge it. Like, you're sitting there with a charger to your leg, and it was horrible. But I still got through it. And one last thing, the kids. My youngest one was just born when I got my first degree. And I think that was the feeling, that high of my dad. I remember he told me the story. Son, I went and got my GED when you were a baby. And even though for him it was his GED that was so special that he can later on say, well, son, I did it. It was hard. But now for you, I want you to do better. And now when my oldest daughter jokes with me and says, Daddy, I'm going to get more degrees than you. I want her to do that. Like, it's going to take you 5, honey. I'm up there, But the kids motivated me.
And she will. She can.
And teaching them of how they should treat their fellow man. My daughters from a very young age would go with me into the woods. And one day we went into the shelter to Hope for Families. And before we got there, we're driving one day. And my daughter says, oh, Daddy, that's where so-and-so lives, her friend. And I don't know why in my brain I was like, your friend don't. That's the shelter, Serenity. And it dawned on me. I'm like, wow, that's where her friend lives.
And they do, yeah.
And I'm like, it could always be worse, And so I brought them in there. And it could always be worse. I remember one time getting off the wrong floor. My youngest one's got a lot of different conditions, and thank God she's where she's at. But we got off the cancer floor, and we were supposed to go to, I think, hematology or something. And I'm the whole ride to Orlando. I'm pissed. I'm like, I missed work. Now I got to spend money on this kid. She's going to get the $20 food in Orlando. It's going to be horrible. And I get off the cancer floor, and my daughter's like, Daddy, why does she have no hair? I'm like, could always be worse.
Fix it real
go
quick,
back to
right?
floor 2. We're in the wrong place here. And I realized that who am I to get upset that I'm missing work and I have to spend $20 on gas? And these people live in this hospital.
Yes. And be thankful that you can take her to
Yeah.
Orlando. Some
Oh, yeah.
parents can't travel and
Yeah.
take their child to somewhere that they need to go for a certain
Yeah.
health issue or whatever it may be, or down
Correct.
the street.
Yeah.
You know, they're in the shelter. They don't have a vehicle. We know that firsthand. So a lot of times, like you said, that believing in someone,
Yeah.
even just a kind word, sometimes you don't realize, like every single thing you mentioned throughout this show,
Yeah.
you referred back to someone that believed in you for that piece, and that's kind of what
Sure.
did it for you.
Yeah.
And so I think for us to remember that that's why not that we're going to not get angry or say the wrong thing sometimes when we
Sure.
are, but as a whole, when we get up every day, try to make our mindset the part where we treat people the way we're supposed
Yeah.
to. And biblically, I
100%.
like to reinforce to people the way that I believe, because I feel like Christians they're hypocrites, and they get a very bad name and give us a bad name that believe the way that I do, which is that it is not my job to judge you, whatever. I don't care what you do. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't care if you sin, if you are gay. I don't care. That is the least of what
So
I
you're
care.
going to me identifying as mom and dad. That's okay with you?
That's fine with me. Okay. You can be whatever you want. If you want to be
Thank
a
you.
furry and be a cat like these kids these days, I mean, that's a little strange to me, but if you want to, by all means,
Thank
go
you.
for it.
Yeah.
Inclusion here on this
yes,
show. That's very
it's
good.
Very, very so. We're very inclusive.
Yeah.
So, but my point of that is that our number one commandment is to love.
Yeah.
100%.
And not judge. And we get that mixed up because we like to put ourselves in there
Sure.
and whatever we want and what we do with our own self and put that on other people. And that is not what we are to do. We don't win people in by being judgmental. We win them in by loving them and letting them know that what they're
Absolutely.
doing is fine, because it literally states that no sin is above the other. So me doing something that someone may think is not as bad as the other doesn't mean that it's not okay. I sin every single day. Thank God that there's grace and forgiveness and all those things, but that doesn't make me any better than anyone else at all. I don't care what
Absolutely.
you do, because I'm going to have enough to deal with. Like, I believe that I'm making it, but I'm going to have a tattered and torn crown, but I'm going to make it there. Thank you. So that's the big thing, is to really believe in other people regardless of their past. We don't look
Sure.
at people's past. You know, we look at at today and what good are they doing.
Yeah.
And who knows what happens.
And you know, it used to anger me. I used to run from my past. You know, when I was with my kid's mother, I remember, you know, she would threaten me, I'm going to tell the college, you know. And I tell you, that's when I realized God was with me every step of the way. There was jobs where I'm like, I lied on that little background. They ain't know. When are they going to find out?
Yeah.
You know, but I remember being so worried that, you know, everyone's going to learn this big secret about me. You know, and that was one of the biggest reasons I said, I don't want to run a charity. I don't want to be the face. I don't want someone to say, oh, but you know what you did? You did this. And I was like,
that's why you're transparent,
Correct.
same as me, is that you're the most honest person you could get. I'll tell you. You know why? There is nobody that can come tell me something or bring up my past or use something against me, because I'm going to be honest and let you know, because the only part that I care about is that God knows I've already asked for forgiveness, and it's in the sea of forgiveness, never to be
and you can
remembered
laugh at
again.
it. I remember someone that didn't like me posted, like, he was arrested, I don't know how many times. And I said, no, you missed one. There was actually one more than that.
Yeah, there's
I was there. I remember, you know.
forgetting.
But you laugh at it. And it used to bother
But it
me so
helps
much.
other people.
Yeah.
So yes,
Gets
I'm
them
going to
past
share
it.
that,
Yeah.
because if somebody wants to judge me for that, that's their problem. I am sharing all those things because they have made me grow and become
the
better
person.
and help others. So yes, I'm going to let you know all these bad things I did, not to bring them up, but to help
How
others.
someone else can learn from it.
Like, yes.
It's also good to talk about it too.
Oh, yeah.
You
It's
know,
so,
Yeah.
I
it's
tell
so
people all the
therapeutic.
time that I wear my heart on my sleeve. You're gonna know everything about me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like that. And I hope that my story, just like you're talking about, can help someone else.
Yeah.
Right? I've been through a lot. So I'm right there with you, bro.
Yeah. And that's what it's about. You know, when you find your gift, you're supposed to give it away. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
You know? And it's just been so rewarding to be able to serve. And I think it's been one of the coolest things, you know, whether it's the jail,
a beautiful
whether
thing.
it's a shelter.
It is.
You know, I remember us going in the shelter and my daughters are giving out cheeseburgers. And you see how you think you're giving out gold.
Yeah, how happy they are.
And you think about for 1 second that it could always be worse.
Always. In
You
your
know?
worst day, worst day.
It's still the best day for somebody
else. Exactly.
You know.
And you're out here just thinking it's so horrible. And it is. All of us have things that to us are terrible.
And then someone
But
else hears and said, wow, but you could walk.
Well, I want to do
exactly.
that. Well, I'll take that.
Yeah.
If you'll take this, You're like, oh, just kidding. I'm having a great day.
It's like how that person who's walking sees the guy riding the bike. I wish I was that person. Then the guy riding the bike sees the one driving the car and says, man, I wish I could be that person.
There's always an I wish.
Exactly.
No matter where you are, there's always an I wish. And my wife's from El Salvador originally.
Oh, cool.
And it's very humbling to go into the streets of El Salvador, and her second mom owns a little store in the house that they grew up in her neighborhood. And they're coming with 50 cents a quarter to get
ain't no socks or shoes.
Two eggs to feed like 5 people.
Yep.
A little bag of beans like this big
Yeah.
to feed 5 people. And then you look at that situation and you're like,
Wow.
it could always be worse. But how can I help them too? So we do a lot of stuff with their neighborhood and stuff to help out the kids there too.
I went to Jamaica and I'm looking up and there was the water tanks on top of the house. And I asked my buddy, I'm like, well, what the hell happens when there ain't no water in the tank? Hey, you ain't showering. And I'm like, where's the hot water heater here? And I'm looking at these people, and I gave away all my clothes and shoes because Spirit Airlines, they call it Spirit because you can only have your spirit with you, or they charge you for everything else. So I gave all my stuff away.
So true.
But these people had Publix bags. That was their shoes and socks. And I'm thinking to myself, I go to my closet.
Like putting them on their feet.
That was their shoe and sock. And that was the best experience. And I was supposed to go there on vacation, but my buddy was like, I want you to see where I grew up, and we're going to stay there. There was no power. And I said, well, how long does this happen? Think about for us, FP&L's out in an hour, we're ready to kill them, right? Over there, it could be a week, it could be a month. And I'm just like, wow. But that was one of the best times of my life, being in a room, dark as hell, with no electronics, just meditating and saying, you know what, I know God's going to get me back. But crying, watching kids have to choose from, do I want to pay to get to school for today, or do I want to pay for a meal? Here, if these kids got to walk more than a mile to a school bus, it's like, oh, no, we got to have a bus route. Yeah. And over in Jamaica, I'm watching them all cramped into like a 1988 cargo van, and they can't even move. And I'm like, wow. Could always be worse.
It could always be worse, but I think some of that's good for us.
Yeah.
Some of our kids need some of that now because
should be
they
mandatory
don't have
before
any
graduation.
Of that.
That tough love.
Go to a third world country and
let's see, and then complain that you
ain't
don't
no
have
bath and body here.
You talk about you ain't got no Wi-Fi.
Let me send you over there, and then let me know if you complain that the Wi-Fi went out for 25
Don't fall
minutes.
into the hole, the crater in the road over there.
No, seriously. We'll kind of close her down
Wrap
a
it
up
up.
bit because we could be here all day with you because there's so many great stories and so many great things that you do. Just 2 questions to answer to end the show.
Okay.
And one.
We didn't talk about water. I thought I was coming on to talk about water. I'm really disappointed.
Yeah. Do you want to one? Well, I
Can
was
we
going
do
to ask
3?
you
Can we
what
do-
type of bottled
Okay.
water do you drink?
So it's funny
No.
because I
Oh,
do.
geez.
No. So for me, there is a taste difference. Like I have to have my Smart Water. I just
that's the good one
absolutely
out of
love
all of
Smart Water. I will pay that extra $1 and change.
Yeah.
But there's certain other ones like Fiji. I'm like, I don't really like the. It's
This is what we
disgusting.
talked about.
To me, it tastes like the junk Walmart or Publix. And it's so damn expensive.
Yeah.
But then if you ever read, and I never did this until recently, but if you read it like the Miami Canal, like some of this swear, it's like, no wonder why this is disgusting.
Yeah.
I'm like, you literally took the canal water and did like a little bit of,
Yeah.
I don't know, is it osmosis, reverse,
Not
whatever that
even.
thing is, not
No,
even.
not even.
Yeah, you don't even get the osmosis.
Just a little
Get a little
It's
bit of
disgusting.
activated carbon,
Yeah.
and that's it.
But I love Smart Water, but with 2 teens, I can't always afford the Smart Water.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite one.
Yeah. See. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so you're actually on the right track as far
Yeah.
as bottled
Yeah.
water goes. Like
When I'm
it's not great.
traveling, that's usually
Smart
what I buy.
Yeah.
Smart water, stuff like that. But in reality, and
It's
we won't
all
get in
bad.
too deep, but
Yeah.
it's all bad. It's the most unregulated industry in the nation,
Yeah.
probably in the world, because
Yeah.
they basically can kind of do whatever they want when it comes to bottled water, except for purified water.
Yeah.
It has to be reverse osmosis, or some of them do distilled. So, which is not good for you.
I was gonna say, anything that's $2 for 24, it's like ramen noodles. It's probably not going to be good for you.
Right. Yeah. No, it's surprising sometimes.
Yeah.
But my question for
Yes.
you was, okay, there's just 2. If
Okay.
they get, we'll see because me and you are talkers. But
Yes.
what's the one main piece of advice you would give to young you or maybe your daughters, because you probably do give them something that you would have told yourself. What's that one, just the main piece that you would, and you mentor. So this could be even what do you tell young kids that you work with now, or what would you tell your young self?
Well, I guess
Prior to all
twofold.
that.
One, I would tell my young self, try not to get arrested 6 more times. Just keep it at 5 if you could. No, but I wish someone would have grabbed me the way I look at kids now, and that is, I don't believe in the scared straight completely, but I believe you have to sprinkle that, because I think I know these kids don't understand what life is going to be like as a convicted felon. And I hold up my iPhone and say, "What is this?" to kids, and they go, "Oh, it's an iPhone, Mr. Marsh." No, it's a felony when you steal this from Johnny over here. And then mom and dad have no money. Now you're adjudicated guilty, and now you can't even get into a shelter, right? So I guess to my young me, if you would just listen and didn't stay with the wrong crowd, right? And going back to when you talk about your influence now, right? And I think once and I don't look at myself as like any better than anybody, but I know what I align and associate myself with. And if local elected officials, like the sheriff, believes in me, I have to make sure there's certain things that I can't entertain anymore, right? The same way when you're going through that Christian experience, there's going to be certain people that you can't entertain anymore because you're not living that lifestyle. But it would be something that my dad has said to me for 40-something years, and it used to drive me nuts then and still now. Your influence counts, so use it.
Yes.
And because it really, truly does. And that's what would be my, what I tell my daughters now. Everything you do today will affect you in 30-some years. I mean, think about it. I'm still punished. To this day, I don't have my voting rights back. Almost. I'll have them probably within a year. I'm 41 years old.
Wow.
Dumb things were at like 19. Well, there was a few in 20s. But, for the most part, I was a kid. I was a teenager
And
that
it
got
affects
in
you
that
for
trouble.
a long time, if
And
not
it
forever.
still follows me.
Yeah.
These are the conversations. And this is going to be my goal, to get into more schools, because these kids need to hear this. It's not just about stay away from no substance. We put so much energy of it. I mean, think about it.
Just that.
We're the era of just say no. Remember?
Right.
That
Dare.
pot. You're going to do the weed today, and you're going to do coke and meth tomorrow.
Yes.
It didn't happen.
No.
We were lied to.
Yeah.
Dare was shenanigans, right?
Yeah.
But that's the emphasis.
100%.
And drinking and all that, that's important to stay away from that. But it's also important to never end up in the legal system. Some of the things I went through, we don't have time. It was hell on earth. I don't wish not one day, between getting beat by cops, being starved. I mean, there was times where the food slot would come down and some of these sick COs would say, "Hey, Marsh, say please." And I would say, "Go to hell." And they would shut it. I would go days not eating, That was hell that I went through, So I want to catch. If we could just reach one and we could teach one, then we can save one.
Exactly.
I love that.
And I love that. It's amazing. If we can all just do something, just do our part each day, whether it's smile to the grumpy, mean person in front of you that you want to cuss out, but you're like, you know what? You have a nice day.
Yeah.
Could shift that whole whatever's
Correct.
going on because they're taking it out on you. Or just one little thing a day that we make it a point to do, if we're able to help that one person, can make such a huge change. And I think what you said about keeping them out of the legal system, a lot of that comes from feeling that they're deserving and they're worthy and
and
of
the trauma
whatever they
that
want
they
to
went
do.
through. Yeah.
And so I think it starts, and on the mental health aspect, I feel like it starts there, having either, whether it's a parent or who you're around, we always get told,
show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Exactly.
It is as simple as that.
So
and it really truly is.
Whether it's a mentor, a dad, a mom, an aunt, somebody around that young kid, because we don't all have all the family members, just showing them just enough love.
Yeah.
Yes, we need the tough love, but just enough to know that they're worthy of whatever their dreams are.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go to college. Great if you do.
Yeah.
If you don't, as long as you're happy and you can support yourself and you're doing good around you, that's where we do.
And that's what we do with these kids. We call it prevention before intervention. Because diversion, everyone jumps up and down. Oh, this kid got in trouble, but the kid's not going to go to jail or anything. It's still on their record. When I was going off to the Army, I wanted to be an MP, a military police. What I did at 14 and 15, I had to get a battalion waiver. I mean, when you're 14, think about all the dumb things you did at 14, but I couldn't get this special clearance. Nobody explained to me that, that stupid fight. Same thing with these kids now, with a cell phone, recording fights, it's going to haunt them. And now with social media, at least when there was not even not my case, MySpace, thank God. Because
that's cool.
I can think about, other
it's probably still out there somewhere, though.
Yeah.
You can find anything that was at some time posted, I feel like. So it's still scary, but
we got to expose these kids. We got to get that child. And that's why I love doing this at the shelter, because they already have, and not to get into the ACEs study, which I'm sure your adverse childhood experience,
2 weeks ago.
Exactly. But that child that's in that shelter, in the Alice population, is already how many more percentage that they're going to end up in the legal system.
Correct.
So if you have that conversation, and we brought him into the jail, thanks to Captain Jones and Sheriff Flowers, and they get to talk to current inmates that could say, hey, I didn't listen to my mom and dad, and I was hanging out with the gang members. Not we're going to put you in a cell, slam the door, but you're going to have... And it was eye-opening for these
kids. It's like that show, Scared Straight.
Yeah,
correct.
TV
You have to have a sprinkle of that with also someone that is talking to these kids.
Cares.
Because when I got brought into gun club, I was like, that's kind of cool, man. I ain't scared of these guys. It didn't really click for me. But if I would have had someone else that, don't you want to be this one day?
Yeah.
Do you realize that you're not going to, right now as a convicted felon, it takes away everything from you. Down to the shelter.
Yep.
Before
you can't even go into the shelter.
You can't. Up until recently at Hope, prior to that administration, you had to be damn near perfect to get into a shelter, right? And we ain't talking about just the creepy pedophiles, which that's a whole nother.
That's different,
but just a person who maybe 20 years ago had grand theft, and maybe they had carrying a concealed firearm, which they look at that as being violent. They didn't hurt anybody, but that charge would disqualify them, from ever even going into a shelter.
Yeah.
Same thing with clemency. There's certain charges you'll never get your rights back in your entire life. How do I know? Because that's me. And so to be able to get to these kids and say, and be very transparent and say, here's all the things I did.
Yeah.
I'll never be an attorney. I'll never, even with the nonprofit, I couldn't legally be the treasurer for a certain, which I didn't want to anyway. I'm like, I don't want to, but there's so many things you just can't do in life.
Yeah.
So that's why it was so important we got that prevention before the actual intervention, because you see these inmates, it's the same common denominator. I didn't have a dad, I didn't have a father figure, and then what I did, I turned into drugs, I turned to it's almost the same story for none of these are, some of them are unique
temporary
here and there.
Relief things,
yeah, it's that temporary relief. It's like that person who gave up drugs, but now they go into gambling, they switch it. And for me, I switched that lifestyle to chasing success and being so obsessed with, not only did I graduate summa cum laude, and with some very difficult degrees.
Yeah.
So I just took that same energy and put it into this way of
it.
doing the right things. Yep. Same shift as, and I'll end with this, I did a podcast from activist to advocate. And someone said, but Michael, isn't that the same thing? It really isn't. Because I used to chase bad cops, but now I showcase the good cops. It's much safer, too. I don't have to get followed at nighttime. Now I see the sheriff, so I say, that's my people. But seriously, there's more ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
And nowadays when people say, oh, don't you care that so-and-so was beat by the police, or look at this and look at that? Of course I still care.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm too busy doing the Lord's work over here to entertain some of the political stuff. Like I see it happening. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
I'll work
There's
with,
always going to be the
correct.
bad there.
I'll work with anyone. If we have a common goal to help somebody, I don't ask people, and I get sometimes, Democrats, I could care less. I think they're both nuts at times, but that's a
what
whole
I
nother
say.
rant.
What is my saying to everybody? You should know that that's
I don't
my
do
other
radical
saying.
either.
No, we don't do it doesn't matter.
I would do libertarian, but they're too nuts for me. They don't really. And Green Party, the whole microwave raise, I just can't get with.
Yeah.
I
But
almost.
at the same time, if you have, like you said, what I tell everybody all the time is I can be friends with anybody. I can work with you on anything if we have that same end result goal.
Yeah.
Because anything
But a lot
else,
of people can't, though.
Anything
Look
else,
at the world we live in today.
No, you can't. They can't do my main saying that I always saying is that we'll just agree to disagree.
Yeah.
That's a big one that everybody around me knows. I say all the time. If we're working, me and you are working, and we want to get this guy in a home or whatever. You could be Republican, I can be Democrat, or vice versa, or you can have a religion that's different from mine.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
We're responsible for each other, but if we want to work together to get this goal accomplished,
Yeah.
we just agree to disagree on those things and leave them alone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change your mind. You're
And
not
the
going to change
moment we
mine.
can get past that, because so many people can't,
That's the big one.
To this day, I get told that I'm this, I'm that, and I'm like, well, that's news to me. I don't identify as any of these.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think I look at a donor and say, before you write that check, are you a Republican or
Yeah.
a Democrat?
What
Or
do you
the
believe
homeless
in?
person,
Yeah.
what do you identify at? I could care less.
'cause
that's
And the
not
moment we get past that in society, and we should be able to laugh at it. It should be almost like baseball teams. You tell the Red Sox people, your team sucks. And you say, well, the Yankees, these are the winners.
yeah.
But we could still be friends. We'll still work together. You just suck, and we don't.
No. Yeah, it's what we should be able to do. So we'll end that with hopefully
Go Yankees.
we can get
Love
to
it.
that
A
point.
little bit of love,
Go Judge.
man. Just,
And hopefully we can get to
Goes
that
a
point.
long way.
It
he
would.
had to throw
Good
the
water
Yankees
and
out there.
love.
Good water, love. So
Yeah.
just everybody, if we could just agree to disagree to end that, like just agree to disagree with people and still just be nice, because then we're truly showing
Yeah.
what God's love is, not what we consider love.
Exactly.
As. It's
Amen.
a choice. Love's a choice. It's an action. It's not just a fuzzy feeling or whatever. But we'll end with that, and thank you for being on the show. 'Cause
Yeah,
we
man.
could
Thank
have
you.
like 5 with just
You might
you.
have,
For
Yeah.
you're
sure.
gonna have to come back on,
Yes.
bro.
It's a
We can get
comeback,
real
for sure.
deep, nitty gritty.
I'll let you roll it
No, it was
out.
great.
You roll it
All
out.
right, everybody. Thank y'all for watching. Like, follow, share. Check out the other podcasts. If there's any other topic that you guys are looking to talk about, we're always in the mindset, health and wellness, water, good food, organic, whatever it might be. Any kind of realm that you guys are looking for us to talk about, we'd love to dive into it. Or we can even find a guest that specializes it to be on here with us. So I hope y'all have a blessed day.
Yeah.
We're out.
We're out.